Hi, it's Neil here. Before we start today's show, I wanted to let you know that I've teamed up with my friends at HireEct this month. And HireEct is the first chat-based hiring app for startups. And what I love about HireEct is it takes everyone away from the dreaded email inbox and waiting around for responses. Think of it like WhatsApp for recruiting. And the HireEct app brings together recruiters and job seekers so they can directly connect with each other. And this allows recruiters and job seekers to communicate more and receive quick feedback. And the HireEct app also uses advanced technology to efficiently map job seekers and recruiters, all based on their preferences and behaviour. So you can improve your chances of reaching inbox zero, accelerate your hiring process 10 times faster than those traditional ways, all by chatting and interviewing candidates anytime, anywhere, on any device. So I invite you all to download the HireEct app for free from the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. That's HireEct, spelled H-I-R-E-C-T. Give it a try, let me know what you think. But on with today's show.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back once again to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as you all know, I have started accepting sponsors on the podcast, but rest assured, only those that are a good fit for what we're trying to achieve with this show will be featured. And any sponsorship money raised will be invested straight back into the show to cover things like hosting fees. Because let me tell you, 30 plus episodes a month is not the norm. And I do have to pay the host a fair amount of money. So anything we can recoup will really help the show. And for podcasting geeks, I've also recently replaced my Heil PR40 microphone with a new Shure SMB7 microphone. So if there are any technical microphone geeks out there, let me know if you have spotted the difference over the last couple of days. So thank you so much for today's sponsor, and even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for tuning into this podcast every single day. I appreciate it's a big ask. I throw a lot of content your way, but hopefully we all learn a thing or two together along the way. And speaking of which, at the moment there is a lot of talk about how technology is paving the way for hybrid working. But I want to learn more about how it can also help with employee wellness. And wherever you're working in the world, I suspect that many of your colleagues could be working from home more than they used to be, and they could be battling from anything from anxiety to mental health issues to substance abuse. But how can you identify, help and support employees? And what role could technology play in that? Well, buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to New Jersey, where Clark Lagemann is joining us on the show today to talk about how Avadons Health are using cognitive behavioural training and how they're implementing it with their technology, the kind of results they're seeing, the help that they're offering. We're going to talk about all that and much more. But enough from me. Let's get Clark onto the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Clark. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've spent the majority of my professional career working for some of the largest healthcare companies in the world. So I had a behind-the-scenes look at how things were really done. So as they say in the States, how the sausage is made. And for myself, I was both surprised and disappointed by the inefficiencies I saw. And ultimately, I decided to stop talking about the change I wanted to see and do something about it. So I quit my job about 10 years ago, became an entrepreneur, and I'm currently now the Co-CEO of Avidon Health. And we're here to help people change their lives by fixing what we consider the biggest problem in healthcare today, and that's engagement.
Love that. And I would say anybody working in tech, they're all armed with a curious mind. So the fact that you just said, I wanted to know how the sausage was made, obviously made you a perfect fit for the world of tech. But I've got to ask, can you share your origin story and where your passion for tech came from, and ultimately what put you on this path you're on today?
Absolutely. I was helping surgeons implant medical devices at some of the largest medical institutions in the New York City area. And I was sitting there waiting for another surgery to happen and looking at this gentleman coming in. And I realized that if he just took preventative steps, he never would have been in that position. So eating healthier, being more thoughtful of his own health and wellness. And it kind of just put me on a path to say, how can I help inspire people to change their lives? How can I help inspire people to get healthier sooner and ultimately do something different versus waiting to the very end stage of healthcare? So for me, it was really identifying that populations are very diverse. There's a lot of people, like as you and I were talking before, you're up to almost 2,000 people have come on this show. Probably no two people are quite the same. Yeah. We have different styles, preferences, personality traits. And what I've seen now and where we are on our journey is that many organizations lack effective tools to address these highly resistant, unique personality types. So I think that we have a sweet spot that we can help people out.
I love that. I love how the worlds of healthcare and technology collided as that path led you to Avadon Health. But for listeners that aren't familiar with your company just yet, hearing about you for the first time, can you just tell me a little bit more about the kind of problems that you set out to solve for your customers?
We look at focusing our attention on addressing these emotionally driven habits, so unhealthy behaviors, and providing people with guidance, support, and motivation to go back to the theme you've heard me say before, change their life. Yeah. So our solution is really centered on a scalable process, tools, technologies for organizations to leverage to help address their diverse populations. And we do this through wellness experiences that can be deployed at scale for these diverse populations.
And a topic I do know is very close to your heart is around substance use in the workplace. And again, for people that are listening that might be blissfully unaware of this, what are some of the effects of substance use in the workplace?
Geez, I mean, the list can go on and on. We're talking about absenteeism, lost productivity, healthcare expenses. So that's the cost for the employer. But the employee, they miss work, so they don't have wages. They have additional costs associated with this health and lifestyle. So they're relying on different medications potentially to help them. So it's a kind of multifactorial approach for the big costs on side of both the employee and the employer.
And as this is a tech podcast, question I've got to ask is, how is Avadons Health and your technology helping employers address these very issues that we're highlighting here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going back to looking at what the problem is. So you talked about this. Most people don't know how prevalent and how big of an issue this is. In 2019, before COVID, more or less, 1 in 10 adults were talking about having anxiety and depressive disorder. In 2020, it shot to 4 in 10. So that's basically almost half of the American workers right now are suffering from some mental health issue centered around COVID to help them improve their overall kind of health and wellness and make them feel better about it. So for us, what we're trying to do is to remove the stigma associated with treating this condition by making a very approachable, convenient, accessible way for people to get the help they need. And for us, it's around changing their behaviors. So substance use in particular is a very difficult, I wouldn't call it a challenge, but it's very difficult for people to reverse the unhealthy thoughts around taking this substance when they don't need to. So we're going to focus our attention really on those behaviors and those habits.
And one of the reasons I record this podcast every single day is to talk about and get people thinking about areas that they don't automatically associate with technology, and also areas they don't even think about much of the time. So what is cognitive behavioral training and how is it implemented into your technology?
So cognitive behavioral training is an evidence-based approach that uses knowledge, cognitive skills, and tools to help retrain the brain. So when you're thinking about how you act or react to something, there's a set of triggers, and we want to focus our attention on those triggers and use them as a source of empowerment instead of disruption. So helping people take control of the situations that they're in a very productive manner. The result of this process that's, again, proven over many studies is improved resiliency, genuine, lasting behavior change, and a higher quality of life.
And I suspect there will be a lot of employers, managers, business leaders, etc., that want to do the right thing, but they feel they're in very uncomfortable territory. But so what does it mean for employers as they continue to deal with the pandemic? What should they be focusing on next, especially when it comes to employee wellness?
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything with wellness, you have to reduce the stigma associated with helping people get treatment. So for us, our solution is providing technologies and solutions that support effective employee engagement. So when people aren't asking for help, they probably do need help. And especially because we're in COVID, you're not seeing people quite as often as you once did. So they're suffering silently and alone. So making it very approachable and very easy for people to take the first step in seeking care and making sure the care is efficacious and ultimately helping those people stay on that path and get better.
And for people that are listening, could you possibly provide, I don't know, a use case or something that would just help bring to life how you're using technology to tackle these problems head on?
Yeah, so I think workplace culture is something that is a big element of employee morale that employers often overlook. So you don't have typically a line item associated to workplace culture, but a way that organizations can solve that currently is to provide tools that appeal to the most diverse and broad set of employees. So for us, we look at that, that's technology. We've talked about it multiple times today. We make it where the solution can be accessible at 3:00 in the morning or 3:00 in the afternoon, and making it very convenient so they don't have to go and raise their hand and say, I have this problem, can someone help me? I can go and seek help privately, confidentially, and ultimately, again, improve my overall health and wellness by taking those steps forward and moving down the path.
And after nearly 2 years of lockdowns and stay-at-home measures, etc., employee wellness has never been more important, and many people have been recruited and onboarded and working every day without actually seeing or meeting their colleagues face to face. So what advice would you offer to companies who want to help employees make changes in their workplace?
Yeah, I mean, include benefits. I mean, this is a time, mental health, that is so incredibly important to address, but organizations have to invest in their employees. So providing a more robust set of tools, policies, and ultimately solutions that employees can leverage, and creating that culture that educates people, that inspires them to take action when needed, and ultimately feel comfortable and confident in the sort of solutions that the organization is providing for them.
And for employees, they're looking to their employer for help here, aren't they, as well? I think that's something important to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's looking for help. They're not quite sure where to go. So the normal, if you think about an employee that has a condition, a substance use disorder, they're suffering, they miss on average, which is crazy to hear this, they miss 25.6 days of work on average in a year. The normal healthy employee misses 15 days of work due to illness and injury and things of that nature. So you're talking about 1.5 more weeks of work that they're not there getting either a paycheck, contributing very productively and feeling proud of the work that they're doing. There's such a big impact both to the individual employee and the home that they're living in, and also the employer. So it's such a big issue to address, and hopefully we're here with the solutions we have to make it easier and more approachable for organizations to help support their employees.
Well, I always say technology works best when it brings people together, and I love what you're doing here and how you living and breathing this ethos. But as we come full circle now, we began the podcast talking about your mission, what put you on this path, your origin story. But now I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you before I let you go, because I know you're an Iron Man of sorts, so you're going to be listening to a lot of music when you're working out. So is there a particular song or piece of music that has inspired you in your career or just helps you get your head in the zone, whether you're going on stage, thinking of your next big meeting in tech or your next Ironman event? What would your song be?
Well, I got to say, when I got ready for this interview, I put on your Spotify playlist, which is awesome. I mean, talk about the diverse musical options. You have almost 12 hours of music on Spotify. So I applaud you for that. And there are some in the genre I'm going to pull out for you, but I'm a 90s hip hop sort of guy. So the mindset for me is a song by Ice Cube called It Was a Good Day. And for me, after all that we've suffered through with COVID, and you and I were talking offline before about my shoulder surgery, any day I'm here with my beautiful kids and on a mission to make people live healthier lives, to help them, I feel proud about what we're doing. So it was a good day, and it is a good day for me. So that always gets me going.
Oh, man, what a great tune. I'll proudly add that to the playlist. I have that now. But before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about the kind of work you're doing, anything we've covered today, what's the best starting point?
Absolutely. You can go to Avadon Health, so Avidon Health.com, and includes everything about our organization and how we can help your organization improve the lives of the people you care so deeply about.
I think what we've talked about today is a universal problem. We've all gone through the same things over the last 18 months to 2 years. There's a lot of anxiety out there. Employee wellness is more important than ever, especially as we head into hybrid working, with some being at home, some being in the office, etc. And having those eyes on people and looking out for people and being there for them is so important. And I love how you're using technology to do all that. And not only that, you shared your life, your origin story, and give us a great tune too. So thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
As I often say on this podcast, the reason I record this every single day is, yes, I'm armed with a curious mind working in technology, but also I want to explore areas that we don't associate with technology. Because yes, almost every area of our life has been impacted by technology. We're using our voice to turn on our heating, lighting, entertainment. Every new device we buy and home appliance we're buying is constantly connected to the internet. But what about the human side of things? Especially if we're working from home, we're not seeing people like we used to. Maybe we're struggling. How can technology help with that and help identify it and help deliver the human help on the other side of that too? Food for thought indeed, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk, and you can get me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter at Neil C. Hughes. But remember, this show is not about me or today's guest. It's about you listening too, and we're all on this crazy ride together. So please email me, DM me, whichever is easiest for you. And if you connect with me on any social channels, don't just hit that connect button. Send a quick message. Say you listen to the podcast. I want to try and get to know you all too. That's one of the many reasons I'll record this. And finally, wherever you listen to this podcast, this is something I don't do enough. It's something that every podcast host will ask at the end of an episode. But if you do have a few moments, if you could rate and review the podcast wherever you listen, it really does help the show against the algorithms that determine who will discover this podcast in the future. But that's it from me. So a big thank you for everything and for listening to this show. And I'll see you tomorrow. So thanks for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.